Welcome to Spectacular Sunday here on the Hearthstone Grandmasters. This is the European region. I'm Nathan. That's Admirable Zamora. I'm joined by Simon Sottle Welch. And Sottle, do you know what spectacular means?
I do, but I'm sure you have a specific definition that you want to give me right now.
That's right, Sottle. It means that we have 6 matches today. You are absolutely correct in your outstanding definition of what Spectacular Sunday means here today. 6 matches. I'm always excited about that. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I think we had a fantastic day yesterday. You know, we really put out the call at the start of the day. We had a disappointing day 1 of the week, just in terms of there being a lot of errors coming through from the players. And we said, hey, come on, this is Europe. Like, step it up. We've been saying time and time again that Europe are the standard bearers. They set the pace in terms of quality of play. Let's see you guys pick it all up for day 2. And I think overwhelmingly they did.
I definitely agree with that. I think that you know, the nerves and this really getting the players this season. I've heard a number of players express it. I've had players come and talk to me personally one-on-one about it, and we've been seeing players on Twitter go public about it. You know, like, this is Grandmasters, and part of that test is going to be your mental fortitude as you progress through this, because anyone can play super well in this this division, in this system, and still end up losing at the end of the day. It is a tough competition that they're in.
It is, and overwhelmingly what's leading towards those increased nerves is just the threat of relegation coming in, which makes, you know, your position in the league going into this point, approaching halfway through as we get towards next week, all the more important.
And so we can take a look at the standings and see exactly where players are sitting at the moment. We're only in week 3, which means that we still, after the conclusion of today in Europe, they'll still have 8 matches apiece to play. So everybody's still technically in the running, any way that you slice it. That halfway point that you see advancing to finals, that's where that playoff stage begins after we close those 7 weeks. And so for me, you know, one of the big stories is going to be some of the must-win players that we see over there, but also on top of Division B with Bunny Hopper and Yarla sitting at 4-1. The 2 of them are going to have to battle today to find out who's going to be on top of the division.
Yeah, that is a big talking point, because one of those can really put some breathing room between them and the rest of the pack. Over on Division A, you see it's a quite separated division with Hunter Ace and Kalento kind of out ahead, and then the rest of the pack congested around the middle with Swids and RDU starting to get stranded below. But Division B, very different story. You know, apart from Fino, who is a little bit cast off, everyone else is fairly congested. So the winner of that Bunny Hopper Yarla matchup will be just setting out a stall to say, hey, I'm the one to catch in Division B.
Yeah, and for, you know, RDU concluding his week yesterday, I think he stepped up his play a lot in the second day of it, wasn't able to get the job done. So now my eye is on Swids and Fino in that must-win situation where both of them, if they want to keep, you know, stepping the race forward, they're going to need to pick up wins today.
They are, yeah. I mean, if now you look at the way those divisions are, and if Swids was to pick up a loss, if Fino was to pick up a loss, they were going to be very cast off. So not only is it a must-win for them, but they're also going to be getting to that point where they're going to be looking at the players around them and just hoping that other players can do them a favor. Like, Fino is going to be looking for Psycho and Boston to pick up losses so he can close the gap on them, because now it's at that point where even if he starts winning games, he needs favors from other people just so he can overtake some of the players above him.
Yeah, so where you start rooting for people you thought you might not be rooting for at a certain point in the season. Our match of the day, our featured match, is going to be up first with Orange and Viper. And it seems like every single week so far, when we've had to talk about unique decks, we've had to talk about Viper when it comes into that mix.
Yeah, I think absolutely so. And it's very strange to see, because he's not really a person that I would associate with, you know, these wacky off-the-wall decks just as a personality type. But if you know his history, you know he has always had these different takes on the meta, and he's wanted to win and show people that a big edge can be found in lineup construction and just bringing something that people aren't expecting. But, you know, you can watch his stream, for example, and he's a very, you know, straightforward, analytical kind of guy. And generally, those personality types, they'll gravitate towards just heavily, you know, absorbing all the stats that are out there, and it will lead them to the point where they're just kind of playing, you know, the best decks that they can find out there according to stat aggregating websites and so on. Viper's just completely departs from that. He just says, no, these stats might tell you one thing, but I know better. I know that this deck that just doesn't have the sample size, because I'm the only guy playing it, it's the best deck in the game, and I'm going to show you why.
Yeah, I think that one of my favorite quotes from Viper is, if I'm going to come to an event and I'm going to try to win it, I'm not going to win it by doing the same thing everybody else is doing. I have to find something else to do. Have to be different.
It's very possible. I mean, some people would argue that you can find an edge just doing the same thing as everyone else, but better. But I think if you can find something that is completely different from everyone else, but is just a superior strategy, that's a bigger edge to find, and that's what Viper hunts for.
Yeah, and so Swids and Fino are going to be, I think, 2 points that we want to focus in on right now, because I do, again, want to continue to highlight that this is Grandmasters right now. This is the elite of the elite, and these players all earned their spots by amassing tons of Hearthstone Championship Tour points last season. They got here by having legacies of winning throughout the year. They got here by making finals of the World Championship or winning the World Championship. Like, getting to this point was a very tough thing, and so now that these players are facing their backs against the wall, they have yet another challenge to overcome, which is overcoming the relegation factor and how much that comes into what's at stake with Hearthstone. Because we've had a lot of dollars at stake. Very little times have we had future of Hearthstone competition at stake for you at all.
Yeah, and it's a huge difference. And I think anyone who saw that Division B materialize as a Europe player, like, Europe is already, I would argue, the toughest region, right? So you already kind of low roll by being a European player where you just have 15 other fantastic players around you. But then you get put into that Division B with the way the divisions got reshuffled, and you're looking at Psycho and Bunny Hopper and Parvel and Ball Control, just all these extremely dedicated top-level players who have won world championships. They've been top of the point standings. They've been top 3 in the point standings in various years. Like, that is a division where a massively high-quality player was going to be relegated from.
Yeah, and so Fino and Casey very much part of that division, and so that's where we're going to be taking a look, is that match that's coming up. Is, Casey, he's always an animated player. He's always going to tell you what's on his mind. I think that him letting his emotions rip takes a lot of that heat off of his chest where, some of that pressure is concerned. And I think that's a good thing. And very much Fino in that same kind of measure where it's about relaxing and getting in the right mindset. And it's got to be tough coming off of a 9-0 start from last season and looking here and going, what is happening? Like, am I playing bad? Am I bringing the wrong decks? Like, again, I think it's just you can play well and still end up losing. That's part of it. Yeah,
he tweeted, I think, last night where he's like, it's just tough to know what I'm doing wrong, and I don't want to just blame outside factors. Like, I'm not that guy. As Gallum was saying last night, like, he is the player that will internalize and look for things that he can improve. He doesn't want to blame outside factors. But it's hard to pinpoint something that he is doing wrong. He does seem to be playing fine. We're not finding huge errors. He's bringing good decks, which is why, personally, even though I hate rooting against Casey, he's my friend and my teammate, like, I personally would love to see him pick up a win today because I want to see Fino get some momentum.
It's starting to hit me too. A lot of these players I've known for years and I've become good friends with, and it's like starting to hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Ooh. It's going to be tough to get to that point. All right, so what are you looking forward most to today? I'm going to hit you with that one before we get to our break.
Looking forward to isn't quite the right way of looking at it, but I am incredibly interested in those two relegation games. I think that's the big point of interest here in Season 2. I think because you can look at last season and see, for example, you needed 5 wins. If there were relegation in Season 1, you had to have 5 wins to not finish last and dodge that spot. So if Svids or Casey, or Fino were to lose today, they're suddenly looking at having to have above 60% win rate for the rest of the season just to not finish last. So I think this is the real first kicker point where one or both of those players is going to have to say, all right, this is time, no more, I have to pick up the win right now.
Both those players had big streaks in last season, though, so we'll have to find out. I'm looking at the Bunny Hopper Yarla match for me because I want to know who's topping Division B at the end of the day. So we're going to a quick break, and when we come back, our feature match is kicking off. It's Orange taking on Viper in situations where I'm looking at these deck lists, and I'm excited to know what we're going to see. Stay tuned.
Hearthstone Esports is home to many competitive formats, each with their own unique variants and rules. Today, we're going to break down one of them, the Shield Phase Conquest format. And here's how it works. To start, both players bring 4 decks, each from a unique class. The match starts with a Shield Phase. This is where both players choose one of their own decks to protect, making it ineligible to be banned. Once the Protect phase has ended, both players will then ban one of their opponent's decks, removing it from the pool. Each player then selects which of their remaining decks they would like to play first, before beginning the first game of the series. When the first game of the series is over, the winner's deck is removed from their pool of eligible decks. Both players then select the next deck they would like to play. The loser of the first game can choose to replay with the deck they lost with, or they can choose one of their other 2 available decks. In Best of 3 conquests, the first player to 2 wins is the victor. In Best of 5 series, such as those in the semifinals or finals of major events, the first player that makes it to 3 wins takes the W. It's that easy. Shield Phase Conquest allows players to showcase their skill set across different classes, while still giving them the opportunity to play the deck they're most confident with. Now that you've got the download on Shield Phase Conquest, we wish you well on your deck building adventures.
darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. There's surely scorching deserts, adventure, monster of narcissism. High stakes think annihilation, obliteration of civilization. Now is the time to be brave. Evil's come to enslave, but this league's gonna save the world.
Featured match is going to be kicking off with Orange taking on Viper in this one, and these are two players who have really made a name for themselves. With Viper, I think it was his fantastic previous year that he had with, a cap at the World Championship Finals that really brought everything and showed his hard work there. And for Orange, this has just been a legacy for him where he's been competing in Hearthstone for such a long time now, and to see it all culminate to this spot, to me, it's not really much of a surprise given that I've been watching it year after year.
It's very true. Yeah, I think Viper has kind of got to this point through conventional means of just being at the top of the competitive metagame for the past 2 years or so. Orange hasn't necessarily been the linchpin of that system. He actually struggled to qualify for playoffs just because he couldn't get a handle on ladder like some of the other players were doing for quite some time. But in terms of tournament legacy, Orange is right up there. So when you start stacking up prize money and career earnings and all that kind of thing, then Orange just starts to really, really peak on that list. So it's two different players who have taken different routes to prove that they are exemplary top-class Hearthstone professionals clashing in our first game.
There's a lot that we could talk about between these two, which is why we have a package prepared so you can get to know them a little bit better.
My name is John Westberg. In game, I'm Orange. I'm a very, very competitive person by nature, competing and playing in tournaments and competing against others, and especially the best of the best has always been my drive, which means that Grandmasters is one of the best things that could happen to me. I get to play against the absolute best players in the world on a weekly basis. It's literally what I love to do.
My name is Torben Wahl, my handle is Viper. The thing that sets my personality, or is an advantage in Hearthstone, I feel is probably the very analytical, very mathematical approach to almost everything in my life. You can break down everything to a somewhat mathematical problem and then be like, okay, I can solve this is the best action to take. Most people don't really think through all these levels and think through all these things, so I feel like I have an edge in that regard.
What I'm looking forward to most about the Grandmasters experience is definitely that I get to compete every single week against what is considered to be the absolute best players in the world. I think I'm generally a player that plays things quite safe. But then again, for being a good Hearthstone player, you need to be wary of when to take risks and when to go for risky lines of play.
I feel like I'm one of the persons that adapts a lot depending on the opponents they face. If I know I face a certain guy, or in GM if I know I face certain 2 people in a week. I'm not afraid of taking risks and just going by percentages. I feel like I'm really well at analyzing stats. I'm really well at predicting the field, at predicting players. I play to win. I don't play to make the top cut. I don't play to go for the safe picks. I just want to win. I want to be on top of everybody else. Yeah, it's just a thing that it just drives me. It just keeps me going. I don't know.
In my eyes, 2018 was not the greatest year for me, and I'm looking to come back much stronger now in 2019. And one of the few ways I can do that this year and prove myself is through the global finals and qualify for Grandmasters. I'm really putting my all into Grandmasters to get to that spot.
2 enter, and 1 will walk away victorious from this one. They're going to enter, pretty much every week, like 14 times.
Yeah. I was also clarifying the walk away victorious. I think 2 enter, 1 leave. No, they'll both be fine afterwards.
That's right.
It's not, yeah.
If you die in game, you die in real life.
I mean, we're talking about stakes. That's about the only way they can get more dire, I think.
Take a look at the protects and bans that take place at the bottom. It's Conquest with a shield phase. So at the start of the match, you choose one of your decks. It cannot be banned away. You protect it. That's what that Divine Shield around the class means. And then from there, you ban one of your opponent's classes, and then we're playing a best of 3 in Conquest. So when you win with the deck, you can't play it again. And so both players protecting Priest. This has been super common in this week of Grandmasters throughout pretty much every region where a Priest is available in a set. Few exceptions. Holy Wrath Paladin banned away from Orange, and with Viper, the Zoo Warlock banned away. And we talked about Viper in his unique lineup, so let's take a look at that a little bit closer and see exactly what we mean. His Druid is really the one that sticks out to me this week as something crazy, but even in the Control Warrior, Deathwing in the 10-mana slot.
And he actually won with it in his first game of the week. He had a position where the game was solved. He knew exactly what his opponent's hand was able to just jam the Deathwing because it solved the game. But that Miracle Druid, like even just those 3 cards does not quite do it justice. He has an insane cycle deck in Druid. No quest, none to be seen, and then he has this win condition of infinite Nomi, or he can go for the Bees Elise kind of OTK combo that some of you might be familiar with. If you're not, I'll try and cover it if it comes up. But we're going to be seeing Druid from the other side, and it's a much more normie Druid on Orange's side, the quest Druid that we are used to seeing from most players. And Admirable, I want to see Druid pick up a win in this matchup because we know it's favored, but it just keeps losing every single game against Warrior.
Well, if they didn't play with Chef Normie and play with Chef Nomi, maybe it would work.
Okay, well done. We're off to a good start. Excellent work.
Well, Orange is missing I'd say the most powerful card if he's going to end up beating this matchup, which in my opinion is Nourish. I've been playing a lot of Quest Druid lately because I feel like I've had a fundamental misunderstanding of what a lot of the players were doing and how the deck's actually, breaching into its win condition. And so for Orange, I'm looking at every single one of these players, how they've rolled their eyes when they've seen Nourishes, and I'm like, felt like you had a pretty good turn to develop here. So I took some time to sit down and start prioritizing landing Nourishes in most of my games.
Yep.
Whew, I had a fundamental misunderstanding of what the important part of this matchup was. So the 2 things that I've been trying to do is, number 1, snag tempo, and then as soon as my opponent doesn't kill stuff, I blow up everything that they play and go face the rest of the game. And that has worked wonderfully for me.
Yeah, we were talking to, was it Calento, who said that you would keep 2 Nourishes in your opening hand against Warrior a lot of the time, and as soon as I heard him say that, I was like, yeah, hadn't really thought about it. Don't think I've ever had that option, but that makes sense.
Exactly, and so I hadn't had that option either. When he said it, I was like, that does feel right, actually. Like, Warrior's not really doing too much, especially when it's an open decklist format like we have here. You know exactly what your opponent's bringing to the table. So we've seen this matchup in Grandmasters go pretty much like it's going right now. Warrior gets off to a very strong curve. They start pressuring the Druid. The Druid has been unable to recover so far. So for in Orange's position, I think this is an opportunity for him to break that trend and really show why Druid is favored in this matchup. I think there are some variations that are not favored, but when you're running Chef Nomi and you're running Elise, I don't believe that's the case. I think that the Druid is extremely favored in that circumstance.
Yeah.
And so I want to see him be able to get ahead in this game and show off Druid because it has not been represented well in terms of the deck itself, not the pilots, in Grandmasters so far.
Yeah, I think when you look at some of the other deck lists where there's no Nomi or perhaps even no Elise, then Viper himself played this matchup, and because he has that extra Deathwing for that final board clear, when the player on the other side is cutting some of those board refills in the form of Nomis and duplication effects, that can tip the scales in Viper's way because he has that Deathwing in there, and I think that's a big part of the reason why it's sitting in that deck list to begin with. But if you're playing the Nomi and Elise package, you have, Nearers makes no difference, infinite board refills towards the end of the game.
I just realized that when you said tip the scales, you meant as like a metaphor.
Like the actual idiom, tip the scales.
Yeah, and I was just like, he's not playing Murloc Paladin. What are you talking about? I take things way too game literally sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes words just mean things. Actually, most of the time.
No, just some of the times.
Okay.
Sometimes words just mean things.
Fair enough.
The rest of the time, what's even the point?
Sometimes the word "some" in the sentence "sometimes word means things."
Yeah,
means things.
as in like the sum total of the words.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how many of them there are. From here on forward, I will communicate exclusively in binary.
From here on out, I will commute. Oh, you're just going to leave and go somewhere else? Sweet. Sign me up.
We just swap chairs real quick.
Yeah.
Orange tempoing out the mind control tech. Absolutely correct. You need to pretty much panic here as the Druid side and try and contest board. Orange is going to sit at around, I think, 14 when he starts to get a grapple on this board. Wow, Viper's hand is so good.
It's really, really strong in terms of keeping up pressure, yeah. And this is what we've been seeing, is just these kind of anomaly draws from Control Warrior, where they just draw every minion in their deck and curve out. And it is a much more minion-heavy deck than it used to be in Days of Yore, because the Tomb Wardens and Armadillo have come in to fill spots that previously would have just been more removal spells or more card draw or whatever it is. And so they can do this a bit more consistently, but we are still somehow looking at the world where Warrior is drawing this every game and getting the pressure up on Druid that they need to in the matchup.
The dang snip snap.
Yeah.
How's it there just every time?
Orange might be considering the fear of that snip snap here, because he does have a reasonable looking swipe just to take some damage off the board, but it's about the target. Yeah, swiping that snip snap means that he's leaving a little bit more damage on the board than he would do otherwise, but he's taking away that big magnetic base for a Ziliax to come down on. Ziliax can still come down on a 1-1, but that's easier for Druid to deal with than Ziliax coming down on the 2-3 base of the snip snap.
This also represents to Viper more than just wanting to take out the base of that. Like, for Orange's side, we can see that that's what it means. For Viper's side, he's thinking specifically about Starfall in this scenario. So I think that there is a chance that he gets away from the idea of Armageddillo here, because if he jams Armageddillo with coin, he's not going to have a play for the next 2 turns, at least not one lined up, and a Starfall could be backbreaking in that position.
It could, yeah. And even Oasis Surger is kind of decent into Armageddillo anyway. Viper has the 1-1s to take care of it. But from Orange's side, as we can see his hand, that is the setup he was going for, right? Like, if a Ziliax were to come down here, he can at least double value trade an Oasis Surger over the Ziliax that's come down magnetized, where if it goes on the 2-3 snip snap, he's just suiciding 2 Oasis Surgers into a Ziliax to be able to take it off the board.
Yeah, and so if I know anything about Viper, I think he's going to find a way to forego this Armageddillo. But the fact that he's been thinking so long, I think there's a chance that maybe not. He may just go, you know what, he's got to have Starfall. But I'm not seeing him do it. I see him play Armageddillo on 6, and then coin 2 Morden on 7.
Yeah, I think this hand says 6, coin 8-8 to me. Like, that's the curve. Even, taking all hand reads and deeper stuff that we've talked about aside, I think the curve just says you play your 6 on 6, and then you start coining 8s.
And that is some breathing room for Orange. And I think there's a possibility Orange is still going to account for exactly Armageddillo. And he would have found an answer for it, I think, but you got to start preparing for that as well. And then how do you follow up? If he's going to play Armageddillo, you have to anticipate a 2 Morden.
Right. No Nourish being offered. As we've talked about, crucial card in the matchup. Orange yet to find them. Starfall has picked up, and there is a board that needs clearing, and there is an Anubisat Defender in hand, but War Druid Loti, such a high-value card in the deck overall.
If you're going to think about Armageddillo, your Starfall is the prime option, but Orange is taking into account how thin his hand is right now.
Well, I think he doesn't have to account for Armageddillo if he just plays Oasis Surger this turn, because then he's just got it checked on board, in a sense. Right? Like, you'll have 2 5-3 and a 5-4 on the board that aren't contested, so Viper can't just play Armageddillo and just have it uncontested on board anymore. This actually makes sense to me.
Yeah, Viper not happy about it. It's that same fear is there still, is the reason why. Like, if you play this and you get Starfall, you take 10. A lot of times you have to think about that representation, and honestly, it's a situation for me where it feels like Viper is too smart for his own good almost. Where he's like, he knows how punishing a Starfall could be in this spot, and he's like, I need to avoid that.
Yeah. It also did just get a lot less attractive because the Oasis Surgers are on board, but I feel like this is the curve you've set out. Nope, you're gonna divert.
Sometimes it's best to be like TJ, where TJ just doesn't care. And he thinks about stuff, but he goes, what if they don't have it? And he wins a lot of games.
He does.
Once upon a time, TJ used to use his brain. He stopped doing that, started winning.
I'm not quite sure that's an accurate timeline, but we'll go with it for the sake of the story.
And Orange seeing Dynomatic down, I think that certainly opens up some enticement to the War Druid Lodi.
Yeah.
And trying to buy back some of this board. The Frosh Sal giving him some
see.
breathing room as well. That Nourish being 1 card draw off is... Ooh.
Yeah, that Nourish is a shining beacon on the right-hand side of Orange's hand right now. Like, as soon as you draw that card, you're kind of tumbling into like, okay, how do I get away with playing this next turn, right? Like I need enough space that I can nourish next turn and be okay with it.
I think that just means War Druid Lodi.
I do agree.
As much as you want to leave it hidden, I think that life total can be precious.
I'm not necessarily sure you do attack. No, I agree with this. I think leaving it stealth here is perfectly reasonable.
I think it's reasonable. That hand is big.
This is the bigger problem, right? If you're scared of Armadillo,
Well,
you don't want to just reveal your last way in hand to really deal with it unless you want to use the fluked version, which you kind of do not.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, if you attacked there and the Armadillo comes down, you still have 4/3 poisonous in play.
Right, but if
They have
you
an opportunity to kill it, but then that foregoes the Armadillo.
yeah, if you attack there, Viper doesn't necessarily play the Armadillo. They just kill that thing, and then you pass like you did on the previous turn, and then Orange has a hand that doesn't have a way to really challenge Armadillo from hand in it anymore.
Innervate drawn. Big draw. But again, how do you set up against 2 Mordens? Can you afford to perhaps take a hit? Does Viper fall for that bait?
What if?
He's seen the mind control tech go away, so I'd say a little bit more incentive to put stuff on board, but he's staring down that spell damage on the other side.
Yeah.
Wow, Orange gonna hold off. That is a bold move. I guess he's attacking. Okay. I was like, we're killing it, right?
Oh, yeah,
like-
that thing was always dying.
Whew!
The Starfall there does allow him to keep his Loti in stealth, which, as you were saying, kind of has upside because you can then slightly more effectively deal with the 2 Mordens that come down. But then that's not really true because in that universe you've already used your Starfall, which would be the big removal spell that you wanted to use with your stealth Loti anyway. So I kind of feel like just keeping the Starfall in hand and using the Loti to take care of the Armadillo probably is the more beneficial way around of doing it.
Super Collider pickup. I mean, does it line up more perfectly than this?
Not really. The only issue is that number in the bottom right says 8. 5 isn't 8.
I'm okay with just Wipeout. There's all of Viper's plays are good. Whether he coins Dr. Boom, whether he trades over the Lodi and plays 2 Morden, or whether he uses Super Collider. Heck, even if he uses Ziliax here, all of Viper's plays are good. And this is a situation that has been common in Warrior versus Druid and European Grandmasters. This is not supposed to be the case.
Nope. Apparently not, but this is what we keep seeing. I think Orange is still relatively comfortable. He's in a much more comfortable spot than we've seen various other Druids in previous weeks playing in this matchup, because in other matchups, the Druid had got beaten down to like within an inch of their life, like single-digit HP, and then they had to they were just throwing out Hidden Oasis and Starfall every turn, just scrambling to stay alive. Orange stabilized much, much earlier and has been able to start to focus on game plans of setting up win conditions himself much sooner. And so because of that, even with the big pile of stats on the other side, I think Orange is a little bit more comfortable, but I'm still very curious how big of an impact that Deathwing is going to have on proceedings when it gets down to the hyper late game.
Who dares defy such a land?
Love this board tension. Make big boards when the warrior has stuff in play, because then their own removal starts to have a liability to it as well.
Yep, that's such an important factor. That was something I quickly began to realize as I was keeping Nourish against them, is that, wait a minute, I have enough stuff that I can just play into their stuff.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do. So for Viper, the question is, number one, can I connect? And if so, is it impactful? If it's not, how can I handle board best? See him highlighting over everything. He's mapping out the next 16 options that players will have on attacks.
You two can hold me. Now two can hold me.
Yep, I think he's found some pretty high efficiency here. However, that may be the time for him to step back and start playing defensive.
Well, based on Orange's hand, he might just have another fairly free turn here to just drop 2 Mordants for tempo once more.
The natural Lodi shows up. Important to note, Orange does not have King Ferris in his deck.
Yep.
So he's free to just spend and spend and spend. In Viper's game the other day with Druid, he demonstrated at the end of the game using at least the Enlightened with Phlebidinous Floop and creating about 4 Chef Nomis in your hand. And when I saw it take place, I was like, that's how you're supposed to do that. You just take a turn off and say, yeah, do your worst.
Yep.
Here's 7 6/6s, idiot. I imagine Orange has his eye on that at some point in this game.
Which makes that Floop an incredibly high value card. It's hard to imagine a higher value card than a 4-mana Cenarius that has both effects going off on it, but no, it is actually higher value than that in this deck. Chooses to develop a 6/6 over the swipe.
I like it.
I think with Loti in hand, that does make some sense. See if he can siphon some of these Super Collider charges away from Viper as well by just presenting a very attractive attack for him.
No shortage of gas on Viper's side, though.
Nope.
I'll be curious when he wants to get this Dr. Boom in play.
When he finds a Shield Slam to go with it, maybe.
Wow.
Okay, then.
All right, so what I've learned is that the Boom Reaver, Tomb Warden, and Omega Devastator are the only mechs available. Wow.
It can't happen again, can it, Admirable?
I mean, Viper had the hand.
He did.
He's got the goods right
but
now.
how many times can every warrior we see
He's
draw
got
the hand?
He's got a Deathwing in the deck, all right?
That is a good point. All right, good point. Well made.
Tenya. And the more removal that Orange expends, the tougher it's going to look because Viper's hand is huge. There's no way for Orange to know that.
What if?
Now, as far as Orange is concerned, this can be like 3 1-3 cost mechs off the Omega Assembly and then a bunch of removal in the other slots. It's not. It's heat all the way down.
What if?
Looks to me like he's going for a clear here with the Lodian swipe. Protect that Crystal Merchant, hope it buys some time.
Fortunate part is that the Lotus is going to have to be used just to suicide into this mech, but you got to do what you got to do. You can't keep taking 10 for too much longer.
No, you cannot. I hate taking 10. That's one of my least favorite things to do. And it's one of my most favorite things to do.
What about, I'm really thinking about this one, taking 11.
Oh my gosh. This is not fair. This is illegal.
There you go. You show that restraint for a while and then you bring it out. That's how it's done.
I'm not kidding. Call the police.
All right. All right. What is it, 911 here? Is
it's
that right?
0811 999 88199 911 9725.
Got it.
3.
Let's see.
If that's actually the right number, I'm going to be amazed.
Of course it is. I might have missed a 1.
I'm checking immediately.
Oh, wait, 1-1. That's the part I'm least confident about.
In the break, I'm checking. Twitch chat's probably confused. I know that's not the number for emergency services. It's a reference, and if he got the number right, I'm going to be stunned.
Better looking drivers now.
Yeah.
Orange is trying to scrape by. I mean, look at this. He's like, okay, this has got to be like the last bit. He's got maybe a Tomb Warden, like a Bronze Gatekeeper.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. He sees the laser go off last turn, right? Like he knows there's at least something else big coming down.
It could just be Bronze Gatekeeper, right?
It could be.
Yeah, you're hoping it is.
Rusty Recycler
Exactly.
or some garbage. Yeah.
And then you see Dr. Boom, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's the bad mechs.
Yeah, there's no way he wants to play Dr. Boom first and then rush these giant Tomb Wardens into my stuff. That's not a real world.
Whoa.
Excuse me, 911, I'd like to report a murder.
All right, Zephyr's active, though. Wrath shows up. It's a major uphill battle for Orange, but he's not out of it.
Let's see.
He doesn't know it's an uphill battle, though, and it's not supposed to be.
Nope.
There's 2 things I want to focus in on. Number 1, Viper's deck does not contain weapon destruction. So if at any point Zephyrus for Tyrion becomes the strong thing to do,
yeah,
I think it's a
I wonder
fair
where you were
option.
going with that for a second, but yeah, sure, that makes sense.
Number 2, if you're going to rip the Chef Nomi and have the Zephyrus and Nomi and Floop in hand, you might want a 5/5 in play, but you're staring down a Super Collider.
You're also staring down Kaboom Hero Power, which if you don't do anything, there's just a 5/1 on board that dies to the Hero Power and they get free development.
Sounds like we make him use a Super Collider.
Yeah.
Let's see. Need a hand, Explorer?
Do you need to spend an Innervate? What are the 3 remaining cards?
So they see the setup that Admirable was talking about previously. That Floop on the far left is now an Elise, so he can essentially keep duplicating this hand for as long as he can afford to take, in Admirable's words, turns off to do so. The problem is Viper has a really good hand to prevent Orange from taking turns off to duplicate Chef Nomi's.
I think Orange is actually pretty happy to burn a card here as well, because you want to use Floops on Elise.
Yeah.
Your burns are going to be Anubisath, Defender, Wrath, and then something I can't quite identify at the moment. What I think is a swipe?
Second Worthy Expedition?
He only has 1 copy
only
Worthy
plays 1?
Expedition.
Okay.
I think it's correct in the Elise versions. It's a tough card to activate.
Yep.
It's somewhere in the neighborhood of the card doesn't matter.
Right.
And so when you're duplicating your hand and trying to make more hand space, what ends up happening is you have to spend a ton of cards.
Right.
So burning cards can become a benefit for Orange to help contain the hand size. And I think that's manipulated really well here.
Okay, then.
He's got to get everything picture perfect to win this game.
Uses the smaller of the 2 Tomb Wardens and preserves his Super Collider.
I like it.
Fascinating.
See, it's spots like this. Like, you don't really want to do too much in Orange's position. You want to take your time and continue to contain your hand size and make it perfect. So stuff like Zephyrus starts to look way better in these instances. Burning Hidden Oasis in this spot, knowing that you have
Needs it out
backup.
of the hand. Just needs it out of the hand. Needs space. You can see Viper on his part as well. He's just already accounting for threats. I think he was counting the amount of duplications that could be in hand there, the big relevant threats that he cares about. Hidden Oasis will be amongst them. But then he's counting, okay, so like right now there's 2 Nomis, there's 2 Zephyrus. These are all the things I've got to beat.
Orange going the full Monty.
I think he has to. Like I said, like he doesn't. The hand that Viper has and the pressure he's generating, he can't just take turns completely off right now. He has to take small risks like this that he whiffs on a high-value card, and he does whiff on a Nomi.
But
Your wish is my suggestion.
yeah, that hitting the Hidden Oasis, I think, was not the ideal spot for Orange, but his hand has a ton of stuff going on right now. So Viper has to figure out, how do I defend myself or how do I turn up the heat? Because it's got to be one of those two now. Orange's hand is getting insane, and we're about to see the explosive turns that Orange can produce.
Yeah, this is about to get big, and from my perspective, Viper can kind of do both right now. Like, he can attack with these Omega Devastators and just push damage face and make a huge board, but then if he is forced back on the defensive later on, with 10 cards remaining in his deck, he's already found double Brawl and his Deathwing. Now, don't get me wrong, Orange has way more board refills available if he keeps going with this duplication than Viper can handle, but he has to do that while staying alive himself. Like, is it Orange that's stuck in the bad position about whether to defend or attack?
There's two reasons I don't think so. Number one, if Viper expends everything here to try to contain the board, that opens up the window for Orange to actually use his Zephyruses as a defensive measure. So he's got that checked. Number two, he has 2 Hidden Oasis in hand. So he has the ability to fight back on the life total front as well. Once he gets into fatigue, he can buy himself some time to get the Nomis active. So Viper wants to push this damage right now, and he doesn't overcommit to the board, and that's what I really like about this. He preserves the Super Collider charges.
Starfall was the one card that we couldn't account for. There you go. Just saw it.
So this is Twisting Nether all day.
Yep. You always got to have that quick think about Shadow Flame. It's always the one that's surprisingly good sometimes, but not here.
Okay, so it doesn't offer Brawl. I was thinking, like, are you ever desperate enough to, like, try to win a Brawl in this spot?
Yeah, I don't have a 100% handle on how Zephyrus assesses Brawl there, but I think when there's those 2 huge 5-attack minions on board, it values Brawl a bit lower because it knows that those are really bad outcomes for you if that happens.
Our Megadillo from a Discovery, our Megadillo from the Boom Reaver, our Megadillo from the Natural. Wow.
That is now a triple buffed Tomb Warden, I believe, that is left remaining in hand.
That's right.
I have no cards left.
Nomi time. For Orange, it's about stopping Viper from being able to really develop for the rest of the game. But being at 17...
Question mark.
Yeah.
Kaboom hero power. Is there anything else you can do to not give that immediate Plague of Wrath over to the opponent?
No, because you need to develop. You just have to hope that Plague of Wrath's not there. That Kaboom hero power is super timely right now. I don't know. Maybe you have to. You know, is there like a deviation with like a Hidden Oasis turn or something? Another Zephyrus, a Tyrion. Like, you don't really have that many options.
Zephyrus Black Knight is incredibly weak, but it's an option that you have to not overdevelop into the Kaboom.
The problem is if you Zephyrus Black Knight, you're just going to be in the same situation. They're going to play something big and you don't have enough board.
Yeah. Next turn, you might not be looking at that Kaboom hero power, though, which makes the jamming Nomi plan a lot better.
Well, you definitely won't be looking at it.
You can see Orange is going through all the same debates, but he does end up on Nomi #1.
Instantaneous Kaboom. He knows what that means. Down to 12, going to 11.
Can't just keep playing Nomis.
I do think you play another one here, though. You got 2 more to back up. Yeah, you do need to heal, though, as well. Like, you don't want to be pinned against the heal.
Yeah, exactly.
Wave after wave. 3 more Nomis available for Orange.
That's it. That's his limit. The Floop has been used, so no more releases. Orange knew he had to go, start representing pressure. So Viper now has wave clears for 3 of these with 2 Brawls and his Deathwing.
That Tomb Warden is just insane.
Yeah, exactly. So any additional turn where he can deal with a Nomi without using a mass clear, he then suddenly has enough AoEs remaining to take care of all the Nomis, and the X Factor just becomes the Zephyrus and the addition of minions.
Look at that Super Collider.
Insane.
Face.
What did I say earlier? Smaller Tomb Warden preserved the Super Collider, and now you can see exactly why that Super Collider massively important as it gets to the late game stages with Chef Nomi. Viper recognized it.
How on earth does Orange break this?
I don't think he can.
Let's see.
I mean, you can't take 11.
Nope.
Do you smell something burning?
Hidden Oasis on deck then.
Has to be. Deliberate sequencing to leave himself the space on board.
Time grows short.
No.
Your wish is my suggestion.
What? Oh.
What did he want? Did he want the execute? I'm guessing so. Has to be, right? It's really damn solid there.
Maybe Master Spell. He's like, I can take the damage for a turn.
I don't think so.
It was just such a big buff on the
And I
two
think,
board.
like,
And he just doesn't, Zephyrs doesn't recognize that properly, I don't
Right,
think.
we were having this debate on Twitter last night, and Orange himself specifically was one of the people who was saying, like, it just doesn't give Master
This would
Spell.
be
So
a
I
good
think
time
he
for a
understands
master
that, would not go
plan.
for it in that spot, emphatically.
Save the best for last.
Viper's still just saying no to the AoEs. Why should he AoE in this position? Still has the Super Collider on deck.
I mean, you're beating down the door.
Yep. 2 more Nomis left. 2 Brawls and a Deathwing. This Tyrion is not going to be enough to be the kicker. I think it's happened again, Admirable.
It's happened again.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
Lethal represented and then some. 7-mana Nomi, not an option here.
It's the first turn that Viper cannot actively reload. And so you can see where the Deathwing starts to come in. Just as a timing tool. Can you play a Deathwing and represent, heck, even if you have another way to refill, I can just hit you for 12 and fatigue kills you.
Okay, then.
That's so smart.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing the Deathwing this game somehow.
I mean, unless Viper draws something, he's got to put a lot of damage into board to clear it off. That could be enough.
Light the fuses.
Doesn't even touch the 6-2 in the middle. Take 9. $12 represented, and with that tick of fatigue, Orange can't win. Wow.
Yet again, I believe, is that still 100% win rate for Warrior in Europe Grandmasters? It's close to it if it isn't. And it is an anomaly, and we all know that Druid should be favored. It just makes sense. But we are not witnessing that in Europe Grandmasters. We are witnessing some exemplary Warrior play and some very, very high percentage Warrior outcomes and draws that is leading to a position where the Druids are just getting beaten up in spots where they shouldn't be.
Discovered a Megodillo with 2 Tomb Wardens and a Ziliax in hand. He got one off of a Boom Reaver, and then he drew the other one in a timely fashion, and he capitalized on the fact that he did. And so to me, that's the spots I want to look at, though, is when you're in unfavored spots, you have to do things when you find the right hand that gives you that edge. You need to lock out those games when you get those fortunate situations. And Viper has absolutely been above and beyond the call doing that. When he has the right cards and he has the right tools, he has been closing in matchups that are unfavored because he's been offered that opportunity.
Yeah, and rewind, like, I don't know, probably 10 turns in that matchup, and you can see Viper's timing where we were talking about, like, well, maybe you just play the curve, Armagadillo, start coining out 8s. If he'd have done that, he wouldn't have got anywhere near the value he'd have ended up with at the end of the game. He got greedy, he held back, he used Dynamatic on a turn where we were maybe expecting just Armagadillo to come down and hit the board, and he got paid out huge for it. Maybe that is just a matchup understanding of saying, oh, no, this, even though this looks insane, Armagadillo and a buff 2/2 Mordens, it's not good enough. I need more than that in this matchup, and I'm just going to keep going and waiting.
Timing of it matters as well, and I think he really showed a tremendous understanding of how you win the matchup when you are going to win it. You know, it's not 100%, and that's what you're trying to take advantage of. So we're going to a break, and when we come back, we're going to find out if Orange can tie up the score, or if Viper's even playing one of his little wacky decks and perhaps getting some wins with it. Stay tuned.
The shadows are rising again, darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. There should be scorching deserts, adventure, monster of narcissism. High stakes think annihilation, obliteration of civilization. Now is the time to be brave, evil's come to enslave, but this league's gonna save the world.
My name is Elias Sibelius and I go under Boston. My username actually comes from my cat. His name is Boston, so I just took that and made it a bit cooler with the triple Z. So yeah, shout out to him. When I got the confirmation that I was in Grandmaster, I was overwhelmed by emotions. Even though I haven't had the first place big tournament win, they actually appreciate that consistency and what I've been working for the last couple of years. I'm very good at focusing on a specific thing and keeping myself like ready for the situation. Yeah, and mind games and stuff like that. My favorite memory is still my first DreamHack. I remember facing Super JJ. I was a total newcomer, so it was very big for me to just be there and just realizing that I could actually beat all these players, and it was very cool. My personal goals for this year is I want to qualify for the playoff. Of course, I want to go to the global finals. That's, I think, everyone's goal, but I want to be one of the best players. I will try my best to get there, for sure.
Hello everyone, I'm Pavel. I didn't think too much about the username. I just wanted something simple and recognizable, so I thought that my name is perfect because I like my name. I'm looking forward to play and compete against one of the best players in the world. Most of them are my friends. I'm excited about the opportunity to qualify for the global finals. I wouldn't call myself a unique player. I just think that everyone can achieve good results if you work hard and play a lot of Hearthstone. My favorite memory of Hearthstone Esports is definitely when I won a World Championship in 2016 and just took a trophy. I was just overwhelmed. One of the things that I like outside of Hearthstone gaming is to go on the nature trips, for example, go hiking or do a picnic or something. It feels really good to be in the Grandmaster League and be alongside with one of the best players in the world. I'm still a really good player. I'm looking forward to playing Grandmaster and show everyone there's no any other player who is better than me.
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters for Europe. Spectacular Sunday with 6 matches involved. I'm Nathan, that's Admirable Zamora, joined by Simon Sottle Welch, and we just came off of a crazy game where yet again Warrior has been getting the better of Druid in these situations. And you know, something that occurred to me in that one is that Orange never really was able to buy back initiative. Is that why the King Pharos is important in the deck? Just forces your opponent to take a turn off, like using a Brawl or a Warpath?
So yeah, I can see that argument in a vacuum, where if you can just take Orange's deck list and just also slap a King Pharos in there, like, yeah, that would improve your matchup against Warrior. The problem is, when players are playing the King Pharos, they're sacrificing something else, like a Nomi or an Elise to go in that spot. So I think if you make that substitution, you actually make your matchup against Warrior significantly worse. And if you want to pack them all in there, like, maybe you're just way too greedy against everything else. Who knows?
It's possible.
Yeah.
Just an important note. You know, I've noticed the players with King Pharos, they can tend to buy back the initiative at some point. And Orange, I still think, is favoring that spot. Just, we got beat down.
Yep.
Needed something way to bridge the gap. And so we got ourselves a Priest Mirror match in game number 2.
Viper going first, has initiative on average to take favorable trades if he finds the right cards to do so. And he has the Light Warden.
In the lights.
You know, he's got a good-looking hand, but this is the kind of hand I always feel the most nervous with when I'm in Priest positions. It's like, my hand doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, personally, I think this is a pretty ugly-looking hand for Viper. It's just a little bit slow, especially going first. There's a chance that he just has big whiffs on 2 turns if he finds ineffective spells off the top.
Yeah, like, to give you an idea, there are 4 cards in the deck that cost more than 3. He's drawn 3 of them.
Yeah. These are the crucial turns, and these are the turns that players will have run hundreds of reps on, because you can play through this matchup so effectively. Coin Tol'Vir seems right. The only injured target on the board is that Tol'Vir, so if that gets healed, then the Light Warden is still not able to trade through it. And yep, you see Viper did draw an ineffective spell off the top, so he's now sat dead. Means initiative is going to be handed back over to Orange.
So the recovery effects for Viper, they're going to involve combinations of High Priests, Psychopomps, and buff spells. Orange is going to look to capitalize on this turn when he sees that Viper has nothing to do.
Yep.
And try to figure out how to end the game as quickly as possible from there.
I think Viper might need a Blade Master next turn, just so he can play that out and then go for the 50-50. You're pulling it back from the Psychopomp afterward.
Job done.
This is about the best he's got to contest. Silence actually an incredibly high-value card in the matchup in certain situations, though. We saw yesterday it was the one card the Bunny Hopper needed to swing the game state back his way.
I think Viper has drawn the conclusion that if they got the big buffs, I'm just not going to beat it anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's what his statement had said here, but
In the lights.
I don't want to believe that's true, but it probably is.
And he's not an injured Blade Master. That, in fact, is the second of 2 ineffective spells that I was talking about. Yep. Hard pass.
It's not uncommon to hard pass in the matchup sometimes, though. Like, you can get back from these positions, but Viper's hand cannot. Like, you need the Wild Pyromancer types of turns where you have little cheap spells to go with it and, you know, keep chipping away at the little stuff they have in play.
Sure.
And hope that you can land a Psychopomp style turn. Right now, Viper would need to draw a Wild Pyromancer and then chain together spells afterwards. As it stands, he is going to he's going to be under heat. And Orange, knowing that the single copy of Silence has gone from Viper's deck, you're free to just slam the Acolyte and say, counterplay even to the Wild Pyro turns.
I see a dark
Has to do this. Just Psychopomp into Light Warden is just massively ineffective here. He has to try and take the 50-50 high roll off the Psychopomp to get it back. Even then, the way this board is snowballing, it looks like Orange is potentially going to have enough damage to deal with that on the following turn.
The other thing, too, is that Orange, I don't think necessarily has to kill the Psychopomp, just has to weaken it.
The Ahmet, you mean?
I'm sorry, yeah, the Ahmet. Excuse me. I think he's going to kill the Ahmet. I would tend to in this spot. But I don't think it's a necessity. I think that finding some middle grounds is some of the most clever counterplay I've had to High Priest Ahmet.
I think you kill it because based on your experience of your opponent having a bunch of dead cards in their hand, those dead cards could be Divine Spirits and Inner Fires, and then you're allowing your opponent to kind of set up a huge counterpunch against
Like
you
circle
that way.
healing or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very true story. The cards in Viper's hand, you know, you have percentage reads on.
In the light's name.
Nothing sturdy. Viper misses the the High Priest Ahmet.
What is a loon's will?
Step 1, how do I choke the board? Step 2, how do I capitalize on having this position? Looks like a pretty easy bump over the Light Warden. Find a way to bolster the health on injured Tolbir. Wipe out the Psychopomp. And that Northshire Cleric is the way to do that.
Well, it was interesting. Before that Cleric was drawn, he did have the option of just suiciding the Tolvir and then trying to revive it with the Psychopomp instead, which I'm not sure what else has died on Orange's side
Beaming
of the board.
sidekick.
Just a Beaming Sidekick, right?
What
Yeah.
is a
So we'd have a
loon's
50-50 to bring back the 2/6 Reborn.
Yeah, I'm in the Northshire Cleric camp.
Oh yeah, once the Cleric was drawn, I think you get off that plan very quickly, but at the start of the turn, it might have been a consideration.
I've got more left in me.
So you can see the problem with the Wild Pyromancer versus the Acolyte, and it's not a very fun proposition, but sometimes you got to take what you can get.
Yep. And I think like, even if you drew the cards here, if you cleared the board, you'd still end up going for it. But you can topsy-turvy the Cleric, but there's no way that Acolyte dies to your hand right now.
Yeah, you can only cast 2 spells.
Yep.
So High Priest Ahmet, if you land... I'm sorry, the Psychopomp, if you land the Ahmet, maybe you just play the Pyromancer.
Maybe.
It's a big Pyro. I don't think waiting around is going to work.
Quickly.
The end begins. The end.
Ugh.
Worst find.
Yeah, well, game 1 was not Orange's game. Game 2 is certainly not Viper's.
Same questions as last turn. Pick apart the board, capitalize.
Question number 1, can I kill my opponent? He's not far off.
Oh, yeah, that's always technically question number 1. And the answer is sometimes.
7, 8, 10, 16, 18 with the extra arms, I believe. 5, 7, 8, 10, 16, 18, yeah.
With both Psychopomps gone, perhaps you can just ignore this too.
Yeah. I think if you're Orange, you're at liberty to do just about whatever you want. Maybe this is the turn. He's going to see if he can get a 2/6 Reborn back. That's what that trade would seem to suggest. It is also just the best vanilla trade on the board right now.
Oh, the end begins. I've got more left in me.
Down to 9. I think it's time. Just don't think it's enough.
It's still just so miserable though, right?
Yeah, it is. It's quite miserable.
Must consider.
Topsy on the 2/6 now because you are casting 3 spells. which will kill it and kill the remaining Reborn afterwards.
So 3-1 Reborn goes into 2-5.
Yes.
And then you Wild Pyromancer, Topsy, Extra Arms, Divine Spirit.
Yep.
Yuck.
Yep.
You do it in a different order, perhaps?
In terms of remaining health on your Pyromancer?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure... I don't think there's any way to manipulate the health, because it's going to get chipped away anyway.
Yep.
And you need to cast the Topsy first if you want to clear off that injured Tolvir on the right side.
Correct.
Quickly.
Do you like to play with fire?
Oh! Okay, I'm listening.
So then that goes in and then you Topsy the left one instead? Okay, sure. Wait. Yeah, but this doesn't work because you can't cast the Topsy as your second spell because then the Pyromancer dies. Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
It didn't matter, but Viper messed that turn up. But he was dead that game.
He was trying to figure out something else to try to give himself a
Right.
little bit extra board presence.
Yeah, I mean, the technical play that worked wasn't going to be good enough anyway. He would have survived on board, but he would have lost the game. So he was most likely just experimenting with something else to do. What he came up with didn't work because of the spell sequencing, but not a huge factor in the matchup.
Honestly, that was like pretty clever though. Like I do like the idea of trying to find a way to preserve something somewhere where you didn't have anything else. Because if you just clear a board there, like you're going to be in the exact same spot. Orange redevelops with extra card draw. Like you give him 3 extra cards in that turn because of the Acolyte. Like that game is all about the early board, seizing it, and then capitalizing. It's extremely volatile, and the first 3 turns are paramountly the most important turns of the game.
Yep, and you saw it crystallize there. Viper went first, had the 1-drop, which is usually advantageous, but then, as you mentioned, he drew every single bad expensive card in his deck for the matchup. The only thing he was missing was the Bomb Soundy, right? He had both Psycho Bombs in his hand and the Armet, and then drew Dead Spell into Dead Spell off the top after that.
Yep, and so now Orange has his Quest Shaman and his Quest Druid remaining, and he's staring at the other side on Viper, where he has the Priest and the Druid available to it. So I imagine that Viper's extremely interested in Priest in this spot. He's got 2 favorables on the other side.
Well, he says he's like close to 100% favored with his Druid against Quest Druid. I don't know what his thoughts on the Shaman matchup are, but that could influence things as well. But no, you are correct. He is going to be going with the Priest once again for the Decider.
A certain spot where you can't just be prideful. You got to just play the good deck.
I mean, what if the other deck is the good deck? What if it's not Pride? What if he's right?
My argument was, man, it's Priest.
Yeah, it's a good argument. It's very compelling.
God. Oh, he's right.
Again, I don't know Viper's feelings on Druid versus Shaman. Like, I would imagine that matchup can be quite tricky. But he certainly said that he had never lost until last week with his Miracle Druid up against the Quest Druid. But regardless, I think Priest makes sense. That is something that it is known to have 2 good matchups against these 2 decks.
It is known.
Yeah.
I think this matchup is a little bit less about 1-drop exploding onto the board. You're welcoming it, but Quest Shaman's going to have a tough way handling the injured Tolvir early, has a tough way handling the injured Blade Master afterwards, and so that means turn 4 you get the payoff with the Neverset Ritualist. I like the keep from Viper.
Yeah, this was a full keep, right?
Yep.
The 3 cards that are now remaining in hand.
And I think it's absolutely right.
It's interesting, yeah. It's certainly I would have considered going for a 1-drop a bit more heavily, but when you do just sit down and path it out, you're like, yeah, okay, my 2/3 is not going to die. Like, worst case scenario, if I need to not be greedy and just turn my 2/3 into a 2/6 on turn 3, like, I can do that. It's totally fine. If I can get greedy, hell yeah, I'm going to get greedy, and then we're going to get the full sweep.
It is an extremely difficult matchup for Quest Shaman, where you need fortune and you need pretty picture-perfect play. You need to anticipate things, and at a certain point, you kind of just have to guess what their hand might be. And if you guess right, I think you have some opportunities. Now, with Viper's hand, I think that a lot of this opportunity is going to sit directly into, can I mind control tech the perfect card? So if that's the case, how does Orange manipulate that best? Because you got to make quest progress. You can't let the board snowball. You got to do a lot of things right. So to me, that smells like Bog Slosher.
You belong to the Bog now.
So now's that situation where I was talking about before, where you can say, well, maybe I don't need to get super greedy here because this is a really good-looking Nephicet Ritualist.
I guess my question is, do you go face or do you trade? In Viper's spot.
With the Light Warden?
Yeah, I think you go face.
I must consider.
There's just no punish to it on Orange's side.
Lackey Generator into Lackey. Evil Cable Wrap, Kobold.
I'm not even sure that's a punish, really.
I mean, it is.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think giving their 3/3 rush through your taunt might be worse. Like, because the Injured Tolvier is going to be a 2/6, so it's like you lose your Light Warden, but just chip him away.
Yeah, 2/6 is a 2/6 whether you go face or trade. I agree with Viper.
As TJ says that I say, I think it's 2 roads to San Antonio or whatever city he wants to pick today.
I disagree. I think that's better.
I disagree. I think it's worse.
And so we have reached an impasse.
I just want the argument to devolve into where we're not using anything to argue, just disagreeing. One day.
I hope you like my invention.
Board's getting big. Feel like Viper should be interested in playing around Mind Control tech for just a little bit longer.
Or playing into Mind Control tech because you can capitalize. So that's the visualization I think he has to look at right now.
Yes, and when I make that statement, like right now, I think an opponent's Mind Control tech can actually negatively impact him significantly, whereas in later spots, I think he'll create situations where not so much. So I'm in favor of playing around it this turn.
So let's just say, for instance, you beaming sidekicked the 2/3.
Yeah.
And they Mind Control tech what? What's the best Mind Control tech target?
You have to give me some time to decide between the 4/3 and the 2/5. 2/5 taunt in that case. There would be 2 2/5s on the board, of course. Probably the 4/3.
I think you can capitalize on that. You have 2 2/5s with another Ritualist. So you get the Mind Control tech kind of out of the way. I'm a big fan of getting Mind Control techs out of the way. I really am. Because if you can create a situation where it doesn't swing the board, what that means is later on in the game, you get to keep going full steam ahead.
Yeah.
What I hate is when I need to build board presence, but then I have to start thinking about Mind Control tech, and I'm like, wow, this suddenly got very ugly. You know, that's always a thought that's on my mind with this. With Orange, too, I think the issue is compounded because he does have 2 copies of Giggling Inventor in the deck. And when you're talking about Priest versus Quest Shaman, one of the ways that I have been most successful is when I don't get blown out of the water and I start landing Giggling Inventors.
Speak to me.
Orange, though, has just got a miserable set of cards to work with.
He's just slow on quest progress. He's not finding the kind of tempo plays of the lackeys. He's just not really able to fight back currently.
Oh. Viper's, it's like, it's a good draw, but like Viper needs card draw. Like he's feeling himself in a situation where Orange's hand, he's probably thinking it's better than it actually is right now because Orange is kind of taking it a little slow, like perhaps looking for a swing turn.
Sure. Turn still seems fairly clean though. Trade over that life drinker while killing 1 minion and then use Nephicet to full heal the 2 big boys. Still 3 minions in play, still push damage face.
So you want to kill off the Nephicet rituals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2/5 and 2/3 into the 3/3.
Yeah.
Go face.
The turn 5 is where I think the Mind Control tech becomes a bit trickier because they get to add little small things to the board with it. And then that's where that progress can be made. So I'll be curious to see how Viper navigates this.
Hey,
Perhaps you just overwhelm the mind control tech as well. You have 5 things in play.
Use it now.
I like that.
Okay. I think I still like continuing to play around it for one more turn, but I think this is also very viable. 5 minions is significantly better than 4 at least.
I'm just looking at the 4/9 getting stolen. Like that could be a problem now.
Yeah, that does kind of suck.
All right, 20%.
Engaging TC-130 into
Oh my! And he can't capitalize on that one. Board's way too spread out.
Now suddenly Viper is in the position where he desperately needs card draw and he doesn't find it. This is a situation where we are, between us, both going to insist that what we said was smart, because I would have continued to play around mind control tech. You would have got the mind control tech out of the way earlier, which both leads to not getting this 4/9 stolen.
Look,
very interesting.
there's a ton of ways to approach it, and this is where Hearthstone gets its toughest from an evaluation standpoint, is to remove yourself from result and think about possibility and best position.
Average percentages, average range of hands, average outcomes.
If that 4/9 doesn't get stolen, Viper's turn, it still hurts because he has to, he has to pay attention to board position in that one.
Yeah.
But I look at Orange's turn 4, where the mind control tech is the least impactful regardless of what the steal is. It wipes out one of his mana instantaneously. It doesn't let him put another priority down with this evil totem or an evil cable rat if that's there. And it means that weaponized wasp cannot be as impactful when you try to swing it back because he won't have a lackey in that position. In your position, when you continue to play around mind control tech, this isn't a possibility, but are you doing enough stuff? In Viper's position, if the 4/9 isn't stolen, how far ahead is he and how much damage does he get to push? All 3 of them have merit.
Yep.
And that's the thing that's hard about Hearthstone, is when all of your plays had merit, they all have the possibility of getting punished, and you don't know which one is which. You need the experience.
All very well said.
From nothing, power.
Hearthstone's hard.
I lost to a Shaman on Legend Ladder last night, where I made an Armet board and he Hagatha schemed it. Like a quest Shaman. He just had a Hagatha scheme that was in his deck from the start of the game that he had in his opening hand and just 7'd me on turn 7 with his Hagatha scheme.
Attaboy.
For my glory.
I stopped playing Hearthstone and went to bed after that.
My first versions of this deck when I was trying to tech for Priest, I went through so many different variations. I had one where I had Earthquakes and Hagatha schemes. I had ones where I had Lickums and Zaps and Nerf Shocks. I eventually just settled on, this matchup kind of sucks. I'm just going to hope they draw bad.
For my glory.
Quest complete. Takes the board.
Giggling in hand, damage in hand, Barista in hand.
If Viper doesn't draw Northshire Cleric right here, he's in trouble. He's in trouble.
Yep. Look at the nerves on Orange's face right now. Huge intake of breath. He knows this is the turn where if really, really bad things don't happen to him this turn, he feels in control.
I must consider.
He's about to get some good news.
I've seen Viper cook up a lot of turns with nothing before. And he's going to go through every possibility and find the best thing he can, so. I just don't know what that best thing is. The best thing, honestly, might be to do nothing.
Pyro, circle, then you silence 1 health off the Blade Master, and then you extra arms through it.
You're not going to win that way, is all.
No,
Like, I'm thinking Northshire Cleric only.
Yeah, I agree.
Not too quickly.
It's just not an effective board clear this turn. Like, it kind of works, but it's not effective in the sense of progressing you towards winning.
Yeah, like if you use all this Wild Pyro stuff and then you draw Northshire Cleric, you're going to hate yourself.
Yep.
So I agree with what he's cooked up here. Load up the extra arms, pick away at board. Do what you can, and then figure the rest out later. Play for the Northshire.
This Barista, though. 22 damage with Bloodlust right now.
You better give her a big tip, because this is a lot that she's getting done.
Double pump Azarano, extra
Whew!
power whip, high mountain ice room for mana supplies coming right up.
By the way, if you do happen to get injured Blade Masters and injured Tolvirs in your hand as Shaman, try not to play them. It really gets messy with your Shadow Walk later on. PSA.
Pro tip!
Yeah.
Something just pops up from all different angles. Pro tip!
I nearly did it. I was playing against Warrior, and I was on like the Hero Power Coin Shadow Walk line, and I got 2 injured Tolvirs in my hand. And then was like, oh, if I play both, like I almost played one. I was like, whoa, if I play both of these, the second Shadow Walk won't go off because the first one will just kill itself.
Not a Northshire. Can you just sack one of them? Can you play it as bait? Hopefully absorb 4 points of damage. Hope it's meaningful.
From Viper's perspective, maybe. From Orange's perspective, there's a bright orange glowing card called Bloodlust in his hand. Right now, he's repping, what, 28?
Wild Pyro throw a silence at something? Like, he can't read Bloodlust. It's not in the deck.
No, he's not going to play around it, and he's going to lose. This is the correct play. Do nothing.
I agree. And Orange, he's got the goods.
You want to talk about weird scenarios in Hearthstone? It's one of the few games where do nothing and die because of it was actually the correct play all along.
It's a tough set of games on both sides, and Orange able to just narrowly get over it. And you saw how important him fighting for board was. Just playing the 3-3 and just absorbing a shot. You know, that Light Warden going down, that could have represented a ton of damage at some point throughout this. Viper's got to think about how he restricts the board. He's got to think about his average outcomes. Like if he picks up card draw, how much different is if Orange's been able to fight for board versus having a restricted board? Well, the card draw could end the game in that scenario. There's little meticulous things, and that's what makes Priest a difficult deck. But it's very good at doing those meticulous things. It's what makes it a powerful deck. But Quest Shaman, once it gets over that hump, it is tough to beat. If you don't eliminate it early, you are in for a really tough game.
You absolutely are, yeah. And I think we can talk about the early game decisions like the Light Warden trade we debated, and sure, that's a decision point. But I think the 2 major decision points are the one that you brought up and the one that I brought up, where either you force the mind control tech earlier or you continue to play around the mind control tech. Of course, Viper was in a position where 80% of the time, even if his opponent has mind control tech in hand, which is a percentage modifier in itself, because sometimes it's just not there and the game is over, 80% of the time it is there, you're still in a fine position to be able to continue to trade through. But I think for me, those 2 turns were the ones to look at.
So Orange is ready for the interview with us. Orange, can you hear us?
I can. How's it going?
Well, it's going pretty good. I want to know how you're doing right now, though, because that looked like a stressful set of games. On top of it being super cool, talk to me about the series. How are you feeling? The cool spots in the game?
Man, I felt so good after... I felt like I really took a huge risk by choosing Druid game 1, and I was so happy when I hit his Warrior. And I also felt like I was in a good spot and got a game just right, except like 2 missteps that I did in the game, but I'm not sure if it would change the outcome. So when I lost that one, and I knew that, like, well, there's a priest mirror, which is, well, yes, uninteractive as shown, and then I have to win unfavored versus the best deck in the game. I did not feel great, and, well, not to talk about when I have to, like, coin Bog Slosher on turn 2 into a priest that goes 1-drop Tolliver. I cannot really believe that I got out of that one as the winner, but hey, I'm very happy I did. Shout out to Mind Control Tech, I guess.
So I've got to ask you, obviously we saw Warrior beat Druid again, and like, we know this shouldn't happen, but we do keep seeing it. The Warrior keeps winning. Like, is there anything you can put this down to as to why we keep seeing Warrior win that matchup on stream?
Well, I mean, it has been a lot of really, really good draws that has beaten Druid from the Warrior side, which is kind of ironic because in testing, Druid has won a lot. But that game, honestly, not going to lie, everything went right for me. I mean, I think Viper had a good draw too, but I felt like I had pretty much the ideal draw and I still lost. So that was kind of surprising. I think he played it really well. Of course, there's a lot of experience with endgame Warrior versus Druid since he plays his Druid. So he probably has more experience with that than me. And I felt like maybe I got outplayed, and maybe we should go back and reevaluate if that matchup isn't like it's as good for Druid as it seems, because the tempo plan from Warrior in that game it's pretty strong.
telling you, just simply warrior favor. No, I'm kidding. You're mentioning Viper's Druid. How did you rate that deck in your testing? Did it perform well against you in practice?
It performed pretty well, actually. It was really good against my Druid. Couldn't win against Priest, but hey, what they can. And then surprisingly, we thought that Shaman would be quite good against it, but Shaman literally can't beat turn 1 Spirit of the Raptor. It's so good. It solos the entire deck, that Spirit of the Raptor.
Yeah. There's exactly 2 scenarios that I have defeated that Druid with Shaman, and all of them involve getting about 16 Sandstorm Elementals packed into a Shutterwalk and figuring out a way to use that as the final push. And it's basically impossible, is what I have found.
I was able to burn out Casper a few times as Shaman in that matchup, but man, getting early board control with small minions against that Druid wasn't easy at all. So maybe it's a bit better than we expected, but I still think that regular Druid is better.
And so now we're 2 weeks after this balance patch. We're starting to see where things settle up. I'm kind of looking at the metagame from a top-down perspective. A lot of Shaman, a lot of Priest, and a lot of Druid have come in, and then Warrior has kind of seated itself as like that linchpin deck that goes into basically every single lineup. You didn't bring Warrior this week, though. Talk to me about landing on that decision and bringing the Holy Wrath Paladin, if you can talk about your strategy in depth.
I really don't think that Warrior is in a very good spot right now. I think it's slightly unfavored against the Bomb Sunday Priest, even though some people claim that it's favored for Warrior. It's, I think it's still unfavored versus Druid, and I think it's really bad against Shaman. And if those are going to be the most popular decks, then I don't want to be the one with Warrior in my lineup. So basically that. It's pretty good against most people's WoF deck, but I don't know. I'm not very impressed by Warrior currently.
All right. Well, also, this is your time and your platform. If there's anything else you'd like to say, I think now's a great time to do it.
No, not anything I can come up with from the top of my head. I'm just really happy that I was able to claw back with a 2-0 this week. And shout out to our playtesting group of Hunter Ace, Bor, Fino, Sayan, and Muzzy, and me for being like great practice partners. I would not have went 2-0 this week if it wasn't for them helping me practice and discuss a lot of plays with me. So shout out to them. They're MVPs.
Wholesome as always,
yep.
Orange.
Humble, wholesome. Orange, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
You want me to fire shots too?
Oh, please. Like, if you could. That would be amazing.
If you want to fire a shot, that's great, because you never do that.
Okay, I gotta start with that I love the person, but I think that Colento needs to step up his play. I have watched all of his series, and I feel like he hasn't been playing up to the level as the other players. I know that he has come out on top in most of the series, but I feel like Colento could use some matchup practice and really practice a bit more, because it shows that sometimes he doesn't have the lines down, in my opinion. Can't wait to hear back from him regarding that.
like he watches. Like, why?
This is the nicest, most Swedish call out I have ever heard in my entire life.
If everyone else is gonna fire shots, like I'll take the time to do it too.
Damn straight.
Even in a nice way.
I want more wrestling style myself personally. I think it's all in good fun, and we all know what's here. We all want a better competition. Orange, congratulations on your win. Your 2-0 week here. Some breathing room for you. Get some rest and relaxation, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.